move through this as quickly as possible, and we'll start at the top of the list. Mr. Berryhill, this is item number 1, AB 286. We, of course, are functioning as a subcommittee. Mr. Berryhill.
Well, thank you,
welcome.
Mr. Chairman. Members, staff. Recently, Caltrans purchased a large amount of property in northern Stanislaus County to construct the 120 bypass around the city of Oakdale, but it never built the facilities. As such, Caltrans expects to declare this property surplus and is now working with the Stanislaus Council of Governments, Stanislaus County, and the city of Oakdale to plan for the sale of these properties. An interregional alternative called the North County Corridor to the dropped Oakdale Bypass project is currently being pursued together by Caltrans and a joint powers authorities whose members consist of the cities of Modesto, Oakdale, Riverbank, Stanislaus County, Stanislaus Council of Governments, and Caltrans. If enacted, AB 286 would provide that the proceeds from the eventual sale of the unneeded parcels will be used to fund the North County Corridor project, as was the intent of the money spent by Caltrans originally. AB 286 has a negligible fiscal impact, and I have taken amendments to address any conflicts that may have arisen with Assembly Bill 105 from earlier this year. Members, my bill is modeled after a bill that had passed through this committee and was approved and signed into law in 2009, and I urge you to do the same with this measure. With me today is Matt Machado of Stanislaus County to testify and answer any technical questions on this project.
Welcome. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Good afternoon. My name is Matt Machado. I'm the Director of Public Works for Stanislaus County. And just a little bit more about the North County Corridor. It's an east-west expressway that covers approximately 26 miles from State Route 99 to State Route 120. It's a significant transportation project that recently received approval from the California Transportation Commission to become a state highway. With the construction of this project, the construction component alone will generate more than 20,000 jobs in our region. And this project additionally travels through 4 communities, passing through those communities and accommodating their future land use to generate an additional approximately 300,000 jobs. So it's a great project for our region. It's a great project for regions around us. And we look for your support today, and we're here to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support?
Karen Lang on behalf of the Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors in support, and urge your I vote today. Thank you.
Okay. Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Any comments or questions? All right. Any closing comments? We will take the bill up as soon as we have a quorum,
Yeah.
Mr. Berryhill.
Very
and the recommendation is an aye vote.
Very much appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Dr. Haldeman, this is item number 4, AB 470. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, members, staff, I appreciate very much, in particular, the committee staff's assistance with this bill, and Assemblymember Lowenthal, who has a double-jointed bill for helping clarifying and chaptering out the conflicts. This bill, AB 470, expands the use of existing funds. It does not create a new tax or fee. It simply allows local school districts the flexibility of not only using funds for replacing school buses at a cost of over $140,000 each, but it also allows them to use funding for retrofitting school buses on emissions control. And in the Central Valley, where I represent, that's a particularly important issue. 1 in every 6 children is diagnosed with asthma. So because this offers a greater flexibility and actually does not remove options, I would say that this is a fiscally responsible and also environmentally responsible bill, and I would ask for your aye vote. I have a witness here in support.
Mr. Chair and members.
Go ahead.
Me first? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brendan Tuig on behalf of the California Air Pollution Control Officers Association. Those are the 35 executive officers of the 35 local air districts. We urge your support of the bill. The lower emission school bus program is designed to reduce children's exposure to diesel particulate matter, which among other things, causes the health effects include increased cancer risks, respiratory problems, and because children are far more vulnerable to the effects of diesel particulate matter, it's very important to reduce exposure. This bill makes sense in that it just provides another option for local air districts to partner with school districts and to make the money go further by allowing retrofits to filter out the particulate matter. So we urge your support.
Thank you, Brendan. Bonnie?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Bonnie Holmes-Jem with the American Lung Association in California. We've also been a longtime supporter of the school bus program and want to support this bill as an efficient way to use the funds and get immediate air quality and health benefits.
Stephen Rhodes of the School Transportation Coalition. We are also in support. And I'd just like to thank your staff, Carrie, for giving me a little grammar lesson, so I changed my support from opposed to support. So
She's very talented in that way.
Very, very talented.
But we don't like to give too much positive reinforcement of staff in this committee. Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Any questions? Do we know where the Air Resources Board is on this bill? Is there any staff here in the building? Don't see anyone, so well, they must have a vacancy.
I don't have registered opposition.
Okay. Do you have any concluding comments,
I
Doctor?
respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. And the recommendation is to do that. It is referred to EQ, so that'll be your next stop. And we'll take it up as soon as we have a quorum. Thank you. Let's see. Mr. Gatto, you're here? This is item number 6, AB 529.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. So AB 529 provides for local governments a small amount of discretion to keep their local speed limits in their jurisdiction from increasing. This was a privilege which they enjoyed until 2004. I'm sure you know how traffic speed limits are set in this state. Basically, there's a survey conducted. Many of us have driven over the road and driven over the little black wire that goes across the state. Goes across the street, and we're well aware that those speeds that are that are occurring on the local roads is how the local government is forced to set the speed limits. It's one of the rare areas of the law where we sort of allow the scoff laws to determine how the law is in the future. Before 2004, local governments could set the speed limits within 5 miles per hour of the 85th percentile speed. And they could also round the speed limits up or down. In 2004, however, there was a change in the Traffic Control Devices Committee manual, or the Traffic Control Devices Committee changed their manual, not based on the advice of a traffic engineer, but in anticipation of an expected change of federal law that never happened. And so California cities have been forced since 2004 to round their speed limits up. So in my local city, for example, this is going to result in 40% of the speed limits in the town being changed. And not only is there a cost to the city in terms of cost of lives and a cost to speeding and cost to, to the local residents feeling uncomfortable on many of these streets which are residential, there's also a cost in tearing down 40% of the district's metal signs that set the speed limit. We have worked very, very hard with many of the traditional opposition to this type of bill, and we are pleased to have that opposition removed, and the bill is now supported by a wide variety of cities, a wide variety of jurisdictions, and a wide variety of other groups, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
My name is Gary Montequello. I'm a lieutenant with Glendale Police Department and the Traffic Bureau Commander. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, thank you for letting me speak before you today. Just a couple of thoughts in support of this bill. I speak on behalf of the City of Glendale and the Glendale Police Department, and as the Traffic Bureau Commander, I can tell you that speeding and driving fast over the speed limit is probably one of the single biggest complaints that we receive from constituents in our community. It is also a significant factor in many of the traffic collisions that we have that occur on a daily basis. And even though we have worked very closely with engineering and education with the school district in all avenues of education, interdiction, enforcement, and engineering, speeding still remains a problem in our city. And unfortunately, that is something that we have to struggle with and deal with. This bill would allow us, as the Assemblyman said, to round down rather than round up. And one last thought I would ask you to think about. Driving behavior, in my experience over the past 30 years in law enforcement, is that individuals tend to drive faster than the posted speed limit. So if the speed limit is 35, they typically travel 5 to 10 miles an hour over. If we are forced to round up rather than round down, we are also inflating the speeds at which they drive, which can create a safety issue. So on behalf of the Glendale Police Department and City of Glendale, I would urge your support for this bill and in support of the Assemblyman's efforts. Thank you.
Honorable members, my name is Mina Leyva. I'm the Legislative Affairs Manager for the City of Thousand Oaks. On behalf of the City of Thousand Oaks, we thank you in advance for the opportunity to testify. Over the last decade, our city has been interested in speed limits. In 2003, we introduced AB 872 in partnership with Assembly Member, now Senator Tony Strickland, which would have provided local control over setting speed limits. Unfortunately, that bill failed. Since 2007, our cities participated with the Caltrans Traffic Control Devices Committee, working to change the 2004 language administratively. Unfortunately, our efforts with other cities, that did not go well as well. Today, we are pleased to advocate in support of AB 529. This bill would amend the MUTCD to allow local governments to round speed limits down. The city supports this bill because it creates flexibilities for cities and counties to round down as a way to maintain safe speed limits. Each city is unique. Traffic and public safety have the best knowledge of their streets and roads. AB 529 also establishes uniformity and street speed segments having different road characteristics and supports less variation in speed limits. As an example, within our community, we have a 9-mile street called Lynn Road. Within the 19 speed survey segments, there are 8 different 85th percentile speeds, which create a variance of speed limits for our motorists. AB 529 would allow the city to lower speed limits in 50 speed segments. We have 261 speed segments. This would equal a 19% reduction of speed limits, which is a significant decrease. The ability to round down also helps us to avoid the overwhelming speed creep that continues to affect speed segments due to the 2004 language. 12 of our arterial street segments are reaching 85th percentiles, registering over 55 miles per hour. Our police department, as well as our sheriff, Jeff Dean, feel this is a great tool and it'll keep our streets safe. AB 529 also creates uniformity with the California MUTCD as well as the federal MUTCD. We support this bill and we encourage your aye vote. Thank you.
Witnesses in support.
Hello, Christian Foy on behalf of the City of Long Beach. We're also here in support. This legislation exemplifies a commitment to public safety by allowing local traffic engineers the discretion to establish speed limits in a safe and appropriate manner. For that reason, we ask for your aye vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else in support? Anyone in opposition? I'm going to ask Caltrans to come forward for a second. And Mr. Gatto, while they come up, some of the opponents, the late opponents, that I appreciate all the work you've done with them, have talked about the issue about timing of signals, traffic signals, yellow and red lights. So maybe you could address that, and we'll ask Caltrans to do the same thing.
Sure. So the concern that the way that the concern was expressed to me is that this could affect the duration of yellow lights. And it's my understanding yellow lights, the duration of a yellow light, are set based on the speed of the street. So if you change the speed up, which many of the cities are forced to do, you raise the speed limit, you would then have to raise the duration of the yellow light for 1/100 of a second, or 1/10 of a second. This bill, by allowing cities not to raise their speed limits up, would keep the yellow light duration the same. So I'm not really clear on this. We're talking about tenths of a second anyway, so I'm not really clear how preserving the city's ability to maintain the speed limit the same versus making it higher would affect yellow lights, but I had heard that opposition as well today, and it's sort of news to me. But
Well, I'm not an engineer, but we'll ask one.
Well, Mr. Chair and members, I'm not an engineer either, but Ted Link Overstar, and I do represent Caltrans. We don't. I do represent an organization that has lots of engineers, so I'll do my best. We do not have a position on the bill, but I'm happy to do what I can to try and answer your questions and clarify. I do know that there was some question about yellow light timing. I'm not sure exactly
Right.
what you'd like
The
to
question
address.
basically is in reference not to something you brought up, but some of the people who are opponents to the bill or potential opponents, is just how this law might affect the signalization. And I think Mr. Gatto explained it pretty well, that it would be minimal from your perspective, and we were just trying to find out if Caltrans has a position.
Well, as I said, we do not have a position. Assemblyman Gatto is correct that the increasing the speed increasing the speed limit would increase the minimum yellow time, and that is because when you're approaching an intersection, when presuming you're at the posted speed, then there's a certain amount of time that you need to react in order to safely stop. So I guess the concern would be on the part of the opponents that if the speed limit were artificially low relative to what people were in fact actually driving, that the amount of yellow time that would be allowed might be too short, and you might end up having an increase in the number of violators or potentially a catastrophic collision when somebody entered the intersection on the red. So, again, I don't have a position on that amendment.
No, I
but
wasn't
that would be
looking
the
for a
issue.
position. I misspoke. I was just an
it's okay.
explanation. Okay.
So-
That suffices. Any questions or comments from committee members?
Regarding the yellow light, which seems to be the only timing of the yellow light, the only issue.
Well, Mr. Gatto, do you want to go ahead again?
So again, on the yellow light issue, currently if a speed limit increases, the yellow light there's a certain mandatory minimum for the yellow light to be of duration. The way to view this bill is that it will prevent cities from having to artificially inflate their speed limits, not that it's going to reduce speed limits. There's only a 5-mile-per-hour window, and this just gives them the option of rounding down. So basically you have a 2.5-mile-per-hour window. The amount of yellow light we're talking about is minute because it is relative to the speed. The yellow light concern, I could see that being a concern if we had taken a street where the speed limit should be 50 miles per hour and made it 10 or made it 25, but we're not doing that. We're just allowing cities to not have to be forced to round their speed limits up year after year after year, which results in these very tough budgetary times, not only to more accidents and more deaths, but also to cities having to replace all the signs in their city that have the posted mile per hour speed limits. So the yellow light issue, I think, is a very, I think it's a valid concern, but it's very minor. And I don't want to poo-poo it, but maybe valid concern is the wrong word. It's a very minor concern.
A follow-up question,
Sure.
if I may. Other than Safe Streets LA, have we heard from other law enforcement weighing in on it?
We have the Glendale police officers in support. We have PORAC in support. We have the League of California Cities in support. Ventura County Sheriff's Department in support. City of Thousand Oaks in support. Most law enforcement is in support of the bill.
Okay. And we do have a quorum, but we're going to let... would you like to conclude, Mr. Gatto?
I'll respectfully ask your bill.
All right. Thank you. Oh, just for clarity, you did take the suggested technical amendments?
Correct. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
As soon as we have a quorum that's all here paying attention, your bill will be taken up
And
in
if
its
I'm
order.
needed back, I'll come back.
No, we appreciate you working with our staff and with the opponents, and the recommendation is to support it, pass it out. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chesborough, we want to do something about the redwood curtain?
Behind the redwood curtain.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, go ahead, Mr. Chesborough.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be taking the amendment mentioned in the committee analysis and reducing the sunset exemption from 5 years to 3. Now the exemption will sunset in 2015. This exemption will continue to allow cattle track tractor trailers with kingpin to rear axle settings of 40 feet and overall lengths of 70 feet to continue to travel through Richardson's Grove on Highway 101. The statute was initially enacted in 1999 and remains in that same form. We're changing nothing. This statute is extremely important to livestock producers in Humboldt and Del Norte counties. Semi-transports represent the only safe and cost-effective method of shipping cattle. Investments have been made in the trucks based on the exemption. This bill has no known opposition and has received no votes. I would respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Witnesses in support.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members. Justin Oldfield with the California Cattlemen's Association. We are sponsoring this bill, co-sponsoring the bill. This bill is absolutely critical, maintaining that exemption, which would expire, to ensure that livestock producers, cattlemen on the North Coast can move their cattle to sale, to common distribution points. Without that, they would likely not be able to do that. California ranchers are already at a disadvantage because we have different transportation length issues, rules here in California, and so we already have to purchase special trailers. So without this exemption in place, they'd have to purchase another trailer or do more miles on their pickups with their goosenecks driving back and forth, taking cattle out of the area, which is not a cost-effective manner. The CHP report that was recently released, so there were no accidents specifically related to this exemption, and certainly it is a temporary fix. Obviously, hope once the project is done, then we won't have an issue in the future with moving cattle in and out of those areas. But without this exemption at this time, it would be a huge burden on many of the ranchers in those North Coast counties. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Karen Lang on behalf of the Boards of Supervisors in Humboldt and Del Norte County. It's critical to the local economy. We urge your aye vote today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in support? Anyone in opposition? Seeing none, any questions or comments from committee members? Senator Pavley?
Quiet for a while. Was this set up primarily for the Richardson Grove improvement area? Right now, it's sort of an obstacle, if you will, along 101.
Was this set up for? I'm not sure I
an
understand
acknowledgement of the fact that sort of an interim step, and then once this 1.1 mile segment is improved, which should be summer of 2012, then this exemption is no longer needed?
The exemption, the need will go away once the improvement project is done.
But does that end the program? Because the sunset now is 2015, so I was just wondering.
Well, it would become 2015 with my amendment, right?
Yes, but it's not needed after 2000.
Well, we're assuming the project's going to be built, and but there are some pitfalls between here and there, and so the exemption is necessary because we don't know exactly when construction is going to commence. But it is, I think, we have reasonable confidence that.
I just didn't know if it was linked together, triggered with the completion of the project and the opening.
No, but the bill's necessary in part because the construction will not be completed by the time the current sunset runs out. And so it's just buying a little more time for the project to get done. And then obviously the statute would still be on the books, but it would no longer be relevant because the physical conditions would change so that there would no longer be a restriction.
I figured it was tied into that, but not directly. Of course, the ongoing concern is when you have Caltrans putting in writing everywhere, not sufficiently designed to handle the longer vehicle combination links safely, red flags go up as far as, no accidents yet, thank goodness, hopefully none in the future. And so trying to, I always have concerns on the larger trucks and safety on narrow winding roads. So I'll support the bill. I have to think about why it's not linked together to the completion of that project, if that was the justification for that project.
I will say, if I may, Mr. Chair, that, and I thought I saw Mr. Lowenthal walk through, he's on the phone over here. I want to give him and the committee credit for when one of these sunset extensions came up previously. There was a lot of effort on his part and the committee's part to spur Caltrans to get the project done.
That's always good.
And so I do think that in part this exemption has helped to push that. And I also want to compliment Caltrans for doing what they've not historically done, which is to design a minimalist project to meet the minimum standards with the least amount of environmental destruction.
Yeah,
so
through Richardson Grove,
right.
Yeah.
And however, this is there is only the direct there's no direct link in the bill. There's a direct link relative to getting the project done and being the real solution.
Can I interrupt you to see if we can establish a quorum? So I'll ask the Secretary to call a roll for quorum.
Senators Desaulniers?
Here.
Desaulniers present. Gaines? Present. Gaines present. Harmon? Here. Harmon present. Huff? Kehoe? Here. Kehoe present. Lowenthal?
Here.
Lowenthal present. Pavley?
Here.
Pavley present. Rubio? Simidian.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, Mr. Chesbro, would you like to close?
Yes, the first exemption was passed in 1999, I believe, introduced by Assemblywoman Virginia Strong Martin. We've had 5 sunset extensions, 2 of them by me. And while you were on the phone, Mr. Lowenthal, I complimented you and the committee for having helped use one of these extensions to spur Caltrans to get to work on the project. And I'm hoping this is the very last time that we'll have to be before this committee asking for an extension because, in fact, we'll have a project that will solve the problem ultimately.
Thank you.
So I ask for your aye vote.
Do we have a motion? The recommendation is to move it to approves or just do pass? The motion is to pass. It's by Senator Gaines. We'll ask the Secretary to call a roll.
It's a do pass as amended.
Do pass as amended.
3 years since.
Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines? Aye. Gaines, aye. Harmon? Aye. Harmon, aye. Huff? Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal?
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Pavley?
Aye.
Pavley, aye. Rubio? Simidian.
You have 6 votes. That's sufficient for passage, but we'll leave it on call for the absent
Thank
members.
you very much, Mr.
Thank
Chair
you.
and members.
We're going to go back to Mr. Gatto just briefly. I apologize profusely. We missed your second bill.
I thought it was on consent.
It almost was.
It almost was.
12, AB 1222.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And then we'll go to Ms. Lowenthal.
AB 1222 just amends the Health and Safety Code to require the California Housing Finance Authority Board of Directors to conduct the salary surveys that set the salaries for the staff. Current law allows the staff to set or to hire the entities that conduct the salary surveys. So it's perceived that it could be a conflict of interest. This is no knock on the staff, but I think it's simple good government to take out of the hands of the people who could benefit from a salary increase the ability to choose who's going to do the survey to set their salaries. And I respectfully ask for your vote.
Okay. Are there any witnesses in support? Any in opposition? Any questions or comments from committee members?
Move the bill.
It's moved by Senator Pavley. Would you like to conclude?
Respectfully ask for your vote.
Okay. We'll ask the Secretary to call a roll.
The motion is do pass. Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines? Harmon? Huff? Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal? Aye. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley? Pavley, aye. Rubio? Simidian.
You have 4 votes. We'll leave that on call.
Thank you.
I apologize again. Assemblymember Lowenthal. This is item number 3, AB 462.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. AB 462 is one of those rare bills that actually saves us money while ensuring a healthier environment. Currently, the DMV distributes $2 of a clean air fee to air districts for remediating air pollution. This money, among other things, allows school districts to purchase new school buses that use alternative fuels or cleaner burning diesel engines. Most of these buses are powered by compressed natural gas, and while the buses have at least a 25-year lifespan, their gas tanks wear out in just 15 years. Many of these buses are hitting that expiration date now, when their school districts can least afford to replace the gas tank, much less the whole bus. In some cases, the fuel dispensers may need to be upgraded as well. AB 462 would allow air districts to put this money toward replacing these gas tanks, which cost $20,000, so that a school district doesn't have to shell out over $150,000 on a whole new bus, or worse, sideline the clean bus and use an older, dirtier school bus. It would also allow the money to be used to repair or upgrade deteriorated fuel dispensers. I have with me Mr. Paul Gonsalves, representing the South Coast AQMD.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Paul Gonzalez on behalf of the South Coast Air Quality Management District. We are the sponsors of the bill. I'd like to start by thanking Assemblymember Lowenthal for her leadership on this issue, as well as your staff for all of their help. They've been very, very great to work with. Thus far, under the South Coast jurisdiction, there's been about 1,400 school buses purchased through the Lower Emission School Bus Program. Of those 1,400 purchased, 200 of them are about to reach the end of their usable lifespan for the fuel tanks this year, and another 100 to 150 each year additionally after that. So this will provide us the flexibility to be able to use these funds in a better manner during these difficult economic times, and we respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Paul.
And Mr. Chair, Bonnie Holmesden with the American Lung Association in California. And we also think it's very important to support the school bus program by providing these funds to update and provide the new the fueling tank facility that's needed and keep these cleaner buses on the road and the air quality benefits for children.
Mr. Chair, members, Brendan Tuig on behalf of the California Air Pollution Control Officers Association in support.
Stephen Rhodes on behalf of the School Transportation Coalition in support.
Mr. Chair and members, Tom Addison with the Bay Area Air District in support.
Any other witnesses in support?
Gretchen Ingring on behalf of the Planning and Conservation League in support.
Just barely made it, Gretchen. Any witnesses in opposition?
I'll move the bill if you like.
That would be delightful. Anyone from CARB here? No, never mind. Would you like to conclude?
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
All right, we'll call for the roll. Yes, we need to mention for the record that the recommendation is the motion is do pass and re-refer to Rules Committee.
Senators Desaulniers.
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines. Harmon. Huff. Kehoe. Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal. Pavley. Pavley, aye. Rubio. Simidian.
Okay, you have 3 votes. You're almost there, and we'll leave it on call.
Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Assemblymember Butler.
Good afternoon.
Please go ahead, whenever you're ready.
Sure, thank you. Chair and members, AB 475 updates current code to allow all types of plug-in electric vehicles to park in designated parking spaces that are designed for electric vehicles. In 2002, current law was established that allowed electric vehicles to park there, and the technology has evolved dramatically since then. Currently, only zero-emission vehicles can park in these spaces and plug in. Today, there are a number of electric and hybrid vehicles that are low emission that need to be able to use this infrastructure to plug in, and this bill actually just changes the vocabulary to allow that to happen. I have amended the bill to require an electric vehicle parked in a designated space must be connected for electric charging purposes to be able to park there. And in order to clarify and streamline the process for determining parking eligibility in off-street parking facilities, the bill also has been amended to eliminate the requirement that a DMV-issued sticker is displaced on a vehicle that parks in a space designated for zero-emission vehicles. If a parked vehicle is connected for electric charging purposes, this visual cue establishes its eligibility to be able to be parked in a designated space and eliminates the absolute need for any decal. I've also accepted a technical amendment as well, clarifying this bill. Also, AB 475 has a very diverse transportation coalition supporting it, including General Motors, California Electric Transportation Coalition, and Plug-in America. With me today is Mark Watts, who's going to speak on behalf of GM, and I would respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Watts, you're looking very patriotic today.
It's Flag Day, so.
Representing Toyota, go ahead. It is Flag Day.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members, General Motors is pleased to support this legislation. It updates the law that's been on the books for quite some time. We had found that only 800 decals have been issued over time, and we figured out language working with your staff and others that provided the visual cue of having the vehicle connected to the plug that allows the elimination of the decal program. So we've got a broadening of the law and a reduction of government intrusion in the management of parking spaces. So I ask for your support.
Mr. Watts.
Sylvia Solisha, on behalf of the California Electric Transportation Coalition, we strongly support the use of non-monetary incentives to spur the ownership and use of electric vehicles. We ask for your aye vote.
Thank you.
And Bonnie Holmes-Jan with the American Lung Association in California, and we also support urge your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Jen, anyone else in support? Anyone in opposition? Any questions or comments? Ms. Pavley will move the bill. It's due pass as amended to appropriations. Would you like to close?
This bill will help people address the range anxiety they have with electric vehicles, making it easier for them to plug in. So with that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. I want to get people connected. All right. We'll ask the Secretary to call the roll.
Motion is due pass as amended and re-refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Senators Desaulniers.
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines. Harmon. Huff. Huff, aye. Kehoe. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal. Pavley. Pavley, aye. Rubio. Simidian.
It's 4 votes. We'll leave it on call. You need one more vote to get out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It's a pleasure. Mr. Alejo, this is our last bill, I believe. No, we've got one from Mr. Fuentes after this. So this is file item number 11, AB 1220.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members. Just wanted to wish Assemblymember Betsy Butler happy birthday also. Members, I'm here today presenting AB 1220, a bill that amends California's housing element law. This bill will help ensure that every city and county does its part to improve the regulatory environment for the construction of new housing in California. Local governments play a key role in laying the foundation for a healthy housing market and California's overall economy. They determine where new residential development will occur and whether to impose local constraints that place unreasonable burdens on development. These decisions have considerable impacts on regional and statewide economies. Every new apartment or single-family home that is built produces between 1.33 and 2.84 jobs. Businesses in other sectors rely on steady housing production to retain existing employees and attract new ones. AB 1220 fixes this by restoring a 25-year-old component of the housing element law that ensures citizens can hold local government accountable for deficiencies in its housing plan by correcting an erroneous court decision that rewrote this long-standing enforcement mechanism. Under this bill, citizens would have a 5-year window to file notice if the plan does not comply with development standards set forth by state law. This bill provides a fair, balanced way to ensure that every jurisdiction is doing its fair share and its part to help California address the housing crisis. AB 1220 is a reintroduction of a bill authored last year. It passed both houses and was vetoed by Governor Schwarzenegger. This bill is a sound and practical way to remove delays and help vital infrastructural projects be completed quicker, which will undoubtedly benefit all of our districts. And today I have with me Brian Augusta of CRLA Foundation and Julie Snyder with Housing California testify in support of this bill.
Mr. Augusta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Brian Augusta on behalf of the California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation. Briefly, in this bill, we're really not breaking any new ground. What we are doing is ensuring that the housing element, which is intended to be a living document that governs development throughout the planning period, continues to be enforceable, and that the local government continues to adhere to housing element law throughout the planning period. I say we're not breaking any new ground because we are simply putting the law back to essentially what it had been for some 25 years. As the analysis, I think, discusses very succinctly, everyone had always understood that this was the law, and we've lived with it. And in fact, there has been very little litigation. What there has been is a lot of local governments adopting housing elements, submitting them to HCD, and getting them approved. And the result of doing that is that we get more housing built in California. It's the outliers who don't do what the law requests of them that we need to ensure that the law remains viable, that during the planning period, if there's a deficiency in the housing element, that can be brought to the local government's attention with a 60-day notice, give them an opportunity to fix that, and if not, then we have an enforcement mechanism to ensure that housing element remains a viable and living document. So nothing radical or new in this bill, and you've seen it before when it was AB 602 last year. It's supported not only by housing advocates, but by the environmental community and business groups like the Silicon Valley Leadership Group and the California Association of Realtors. So for those reasons, I would urge an aye vote.
Go ahead, Julie. Sorry for the distraction. We're having photos taken of our sergeants at work.
Okay, I'll stay out of those. Mr. Chair and members, Julie Snyder with Housing California.
Do you want me to ask you to remove somebody? Can we get pictures of that? Take the representative from the Air Resources Board out of it. She's not listening. Go ahead, Julie.
Thank you. Housing California is pleased to be a co-sponsor of this measure. The only thing I want to add to the excellent testimony so far is that with the passage of Senate Bill 375, the housing element is increasingly important in the context of achieving our state's environmental goals. That the choice that 375 posed was, or the goal of 375 is to allow people the choice to live closer to their jobs, get out of their car more often, not have to drive to school, to retail locations, and other common destinations. And the choice is going to be primarily accomplished through the zoning done in the housing element by zoning for affordable homes closer to those destinations. So without this legislation, that significant goal of SB 375 will be much harder to realize. So we appreciate your support, and thanks for your vote.
Thanks, Julie. Other witnesses in support?
Good afternoon. Katie Valenzuela with Public Advocates. We represented the plaintiffs in the Pleasanton case and are here in support of AB 1220. The opposition is going to tell you that this creates more uncertainty, and to this point, I'd just like to point out that this Pleasanton case the ruling didn't happen until 2008. So if you look at California's growth pre-2008, when we had an even more lenient time frame than this bill would create, you'll probably come to the same conclusion that we do, that this bill is not going to hamper development or growth in California by creating a longer time frame. In fact, it will actually decrease litigation because housing advocates, as you probably know, have very limited capacity to analyze these elements. And even those who are most impacted by these elements, who work in the jurisdiction but live outside of the jurisdiction, are even less likely to learn of deficiencies in the element in a timely manner. So we'd be forced to file litigation without having the opportunity to see how the plan works in the field or fully analyze and vet it internally. Cities and counties who do their part to provide affordable housing really should have an incentive to see this bill pass. Affordable housing demand doesn't go away if there isn't enough demand. The affected residents are simply forced to move to neighboring jurisdictions where there is affordable housing, which places an unfair burden on those jurisdictions who have done their part to provide affordable housing. So we don't really understand why the cities and counties are in opposition to this bill. We think it's going to make sure that every jurisdiction does their fair share to provide affordable housing in a smart plan, and we urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Chris Rosa representing the Silicon Valley Leadership Group in support.
Thank you. Witnesses in support?
Zoe Lidstrom on behalf of the Planning and Conservation League in support.
Thank you. Witnesses in opposition? Please go ahead.
Yes. Good afternoon. Catherine Rodman from Affordable Housing Advocates, a legal services program in San Diego. I'm the counsel in the other case that has interpreted this subdivision. I'm here to oppose without amendments. I'm concerned about primarily two things. I appreciate the need for this bill to clarify the law, but this bill would not have enabled the urban habitat case, both in Urban Habitat and in my recently published opinion, which was published May 12th of this year, Haro versus City of Solana Beach. Both of those cases involve cities that had valid housing elements. What this bill does, and it's a good thing for it to do, is it enables advocates to challenge housing elements that were invalid when adopted for a longer period of time, to bring them into compliance with state planning and zoning laws. But what it fails to do is for those other 52% of the cities that have valid housing elements, we cannot bring a suit based on the action of adopting a housing element. We have to have the suit triggered with respect to other actions. And this bill actually greatly reduces the number of actions that can facilitate or trigger a suit in the jurisdictions, the more than half of the jurisdictions that have valid housing elements but fail to implement them. So the very good objective you have with part of this needs to go a bit further. I would recommend two things. One, leaving in all the actions currently in the law under subdivision D2. They're very few, but they're essential. In my Haro case, we use the Subdivision Map Act, the Housing Accountability Act, and the Density Bonus Law, not to attack the project directly, to challenge the housing element as invalid as applied for failure to implement. The other thing I'd recommend, because of my Haro decision, is to define the terms filed with respect to the notice and define the term final action, because either the filing of the notice of deficiencies or final action with respect to it are what trigger the clock running on the time to file. Currently, there's no definition. My court was lost about it. We had difficulty with it. There's no case in the 25 years of this law interpreting it, and it will continue to be a problem. So I've prepared some proposed amendments and communicated with staff of the author and staff of this committee and urge you to make additional amendments.
Okay. Before you go, Ms. Rodman, do you want to respond to any of the comments that Ms. Rodman made, either you or Mr. Augusta?
Right. Well, first of all, the suggested amendments, I think, could be done separately. The amendments came in late, just spoke a couple days ago about this bill, about these amendments, and I'm willing to work with her organization and possibly considering those changes next legislative session.
Mr. Augusta.
I would just add, Ms. Rodman did bring these to our attention a little bit earlier than I think they got to the author's attention, but our concern is we are dealing in this bill just with one narrow issue, which is the court's holding in the Pleasanton case and its interpretation of subsection D. And I think there are some interesting points that Ms. Rodman raises that have come to light as a result of her case, the Haro case, but that's not the intent of this bill. And I think, as the Assembly member said, we are certainly as sponsors willing to continue to work on those issues, but I think we are trying to narrowly focus this bill on the one issue that was dealt with in the Pleasanton case, which is the timing of the filing of the 60-day notice.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Keogh.
Just, I wanted to thank Ms. Rodman for her testimony, but then also to the author and the supporters, then if the bill is narrowly tailored to deal with the decision that came from the Pleasanton case, but it still has statewide authority, are you sure it's not going too far or bringing in unintended consequences that may deal directly on what her concerns are?
Right. Well, we believe this bill is very narrowly tailored until this statute of limitations issue, which was prior law for 25 years. And all we're trying to do is reestablish that rule that, as you know, that Court of Appeals decision misinterpreted the legislative intent and narrowed it down to this 90-day. We're just trying to bring back the old rule, that under that rule, there was only 11 lawsuits within 25 years, so very little litigation, but nonetheless gave that opportunity for local citizens and housing advocates to make sure local governments were doing their fair share in terms of having housing elements that complied with state law.
All right, thank you.
But we're still willing to discuss those concerns, but certainly I don't think
it would be helpful to me to make sure that the issues that are being raised in San Diego are either not addressed at all in the bill or not negatively addressed in any way. So as it goes to the floor, I'd like to be certain of that and be happy to meet with all parties on that.
Absolutely.
It does not go to approach, no.
No, and I would echo that. Given that this discussion started fairly late, I would like to have a little discussion too to make sure that it is in fact narrowly tailored and we're doing no harm to the rest of the state, or
thank you, Mr.
as Senator Keogh said, unintended consequences. So thank you, Ms. Rodman. We'll be happy to work with you. Other witnesses in opposition?
David Snow on behalf of the California chapter of the American Planning Association. I want to touch on 3 points. One, the housing element landscape has changed a lot since the Pleasanton case. 2, the finality principles that's woven through planning and zoning law and how this would impact that principle. The impacts to local governments and the imposition of additional burdens that we feel that this would have. First, the housing elements are not a one-size-fit-all proposition. They are developed through public process with each individual local agency. interest groups, as well as the Housing and Community Development Department. Housing element law continues to evolve. There have been at least 21 individual bills enacted in the last 10 years regarding housing elements, including perhaps the most significant, SB 375, which was adopted in 2008. SB 375 changes timeframes for implementation, imposes new obligations, integration with regional transportation plans, as well as the greenhouse gas emissions and reduction targets. None of these things have been put into place yet. The next round of housing elements will need to deal with all of these issues, and this is a substantial change in the landscape with respect to housing elements. Finality principles. Throughout Planning and Zoning Law, Subdivision Map Act, and the California Environmental Quality Act, uniformly there are very short statutes of limitations. This bill would put a chink in that armor with respect to finality of zoning and land use decisions, allowing an attack for up to 5 years through a housing element. We think that that is a significant change, and that 2 years would be a more reasonable period of time. Finally, this would open up local governments to additional burdens with respect to a longer window for challenges, which would incur legal defense costs. It adds planning uncertainty to all of the decisions that are made and can undermine the goals of economic development and job creation, which are critical in this time of unprecedented budgetary constraints. For those reasons, we have offered a compromise of 2 years, which we think more properly balances those risks and burdens that would be imposed upon local governments, and we think that that is the appropriate time period for this proposal.
Thank you. Other witnesses in opposition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Betsy Strauss. I'm here representing the League of California Cities. I'd like to begin by saying that, as you might imagine, we are in opposition, and our perspective is quite different than that of the authors and those in support. I say that with reference to what the law used to be. There have been several statements made this afternoon that the court got it wrong, that everyone knew what the law was before, and that the court changed the law. But actually, those of us in opposition don't agree with that. We think the court got it right, and that the law was not what it was, what the proponents are saying it was before. Someone who testified in support of the bill earlier this afternoon said that the court misunderstood the legislative intent of the statute. But actually, the legislative intent of this statute that's being amended is quite clear. The legislature says in the statute that it finds and declares that a legal action or proceeding challenging a decision of a city has a chilling effect on the confidence with which property owners and local governments can proceed. And that the purpose of the section is to provide certainty for property owners and local governments regarding decisions made pursuant to this division. So the court actually cited that language of legislative intent, when it came to its decision. Secondly, we do think that this bill, respectfully, is a solution in search of a problem. You've been told, perhaps in the past, that the folks who challenged the Pleasanton housing element actually did prevail in that case. They did get what they want. There was a remedy. This did not prevent the proponents in the housing element lawsuit from getting the remedy that they asked for. But most importantly, what's really wrong with 5 years? There's 3 things I would suggest. The first, the housing element itself is a very important document. The issuance of all building permits, the approval of all subdivision maps, the rezoning of all property must be consistent with the housing element. So the housing element affects a lot of people and a lot of applications for development. Property owners with all kinds of projects count on the validity of the housing element. In order for them to plan their own projects, they must be able to know fairly quickly that the housing element will not be challenged. Because if it is challenged and found inadequate, the court can stop the issuance of building permits, the approval of subdivision maps, and the rezoning of property. And so we would suggest that property owners should not have to wait 5 years. That's property owners who are proposing the development of housing. property owners should not have to wait 5 years to find out whether they can count on the validity of the housing element. Secondly, public participation is the key to a good housing element, not a lawsuit. I think most people would agree that the better strategy is to help the local government get the housing element right before it's adopted rather than sue afterwards. Along these lines, a few years ago, the housing element law was amended to strengthen the public participation requirements so that the public would be sure to have a voice in the adoption process and to make sure that HCD had the authority to consult with anyone who was interested, including housing advocates, about the contents of a housing element. Anyone who wants to participate in the process can simply ask the local government to mail notices to that person in order to allow them to participate. This is really the basis of our system of democracy, people being responsible and participating in the government decisions before they occur rather than suing afterwards. The third problem with the 5-year statute of limitations is that although it is clearly intended to be able to be used by those who are advocating in favor of affordable housing, it also can be used by those who are not in favor of housing. It does cut both ways. In conclusion, I'd like to say that the housing element is an important statement of housing policy that plans for housing for all income levels, that it's the big picture that all subsequent developments must be consistent with, that it costs several hundreds of thousands of dollars to complete. And so I would respectfully ask, why would we want to wait 5 years to see if such an important document complied with the law? Thank you.
Betsy, just before we go on to the next speaker, since you have quite a bit of experience in this area, how many lawsuits were filed, how many housing elements were challenged prior to the court decision in the state, roughly?
There are people here with that information.
I just thought you might know.
I don't know off the top. You know what? I've been trying to find out if you get the number what I've been trying to find out unsuccessfully.
It's
frankly.
just my recollection from local government. It wasn't very often. So
11 and 25 years.
11 and 25 years.
If
These are under the old rules.
Right.
So
respectfully, the number I've heard is 30, not 11. But that's
still
what I've
not
been
a whole
told.
lot.
No.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon?
Well, we don't. Maybe if somebody does know how many successfully, that'd just be interesting in the conversation. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Other speakers.
Mark Smith on
The
behalf
point
of
is, it's not a whole lot of them under the prior rules.
Mark Smith on behalf of the American Council of Engineering Companies. I'll keep my comments brief, but we approach this from the perspective of infrastructure delivery. I mean, you only need to drive around 2 miles from here to see the beginning of development and what the housing bus did to that development. Now we're talking about not a housing bus, but lawsuits creating the same scenario. You've got paved streets with laid infrastructure and utilities that are just sitting there. They've been sitting there for 2 to 3 years. The problem from our perspective with the uncertainty that this bill creates is that the infrastructure investment comes first, and somebody has to pay for that. And in many cases, it's local governments or it's a developer who has to bond to build that infrastructure and then recaptures those costs through Mello-Roos fees or other creative financing over a period of years. But again, the infrastructure comes first. It comes after years of planning. And to start down that road and then to have that road that has been provided for you through a housing element yanked out from underneath your feet once millions of dollars worth of utility and infrastructure has been put into the ground can be devastating. I mean, this totally changes the game from that perspective. So for these reasons, we are opposed to the bill. Thank you.
I don't want to belabor this, but I'm just having a problem with, is that fact, I mean, not to say that you're misleading, but in context of how often did that happen prior to the court decision? And I realize the world has changed since 2008 when it comes to housing development.
Well, I'm not an attorney, and I can't provide answers, and I don't know the number of lawsuits that happened, but I would suggest to you that any open-ended ability to sue over the housing element creates that level of uncertainty.
But your individual projects aren't subject to the lawsuits, so if you've already got your entitlement, it wouldn't actually get stopped.
If you're already far enough along in the process on certain developments, there is a level of protection that was provided. But that is only for specific projects and only once a certain development level has been reached. So I would argue that for the majority of projects, that protection is not
Okay.
It does not exist.
And I'm not trying to, it may sound like I'm trying to challenge you. I'm just trying to, I'm under the assumption that there isn't a huge problem by passing this bill based on the history prior to 2008. So between now, if this bill gets out and it goes to the floor, any information you can give to me that contradicts my belief, I'd love to hear it, and I'd be open-minded to hearing it.
If I could add one final comment, there were folks in the infrastructure community who participated in the conversations last year and carved out that measure of protection which you're talking about. The rest of us strongly disagreed with that point of view. There's a reason why we're sitting here at the table. There's also a reason why they're not at the table in support this year. So
I appreciate that
But
distinction.
we did include amendments that if any protections or rights were granted to a developer, that this would not interfere with those.
Right. And what Brian was just saying, that's separate from the people he's representing. Yes.
Members of the committee, Kathy Mannion, Regional Council of Rural Counties, here in strong opposition to this bill. 21 of our rural counties would be vulnerable for the entire 5-year length of their housing element to be challenged, and that is just not acceptable. Thank you.
Kiana Bess on behalf of the California State Association of Counties. I will just echo the comments made by my colleagues at the League and RCRC in strong opposition.
Thank you.
Catherine Pettibone with the Civil Justice Association of California. I'd like to echo my colleagues' comments and just briefly say statute limitations provides a real certainty for parties investing, for local governments, for counties, and during this time when we're looking to invest and develop our infrastructure, this bill is going to really submit these groups to uncertainty and substantial legal costs. In that particular Pleasant case, I think the attorney's fees awards that ended up in that were in the millions. So this is not an insignificant amount of money that comes with these cases.
Thank you.
Erin Gilbert with the County of San Diego, also in opposition.
Kathy Christian for the Marin County Board of Supervisors in opposition for all the reasons stated, and I've been asked to advise you, Mr. Chair, that the Contra Costa Legislative Committee is taking this item up, but has not yet acted on it.
Contra Costa, always too late.
Hello, Melinda McLean on behalf of the Orange County Board of Supervisors, also in opposition.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in opposition? Any comments or questions from the committee? Senator Pavley?
Yeah, at some point in time, you'll need to address again why we need a 5-year statute of limitation and not something shorter. I mean, there's been a lot of testimony. But on a secondary issue, just relevant to zoning and the way it's done in parts of my district down there, this bill specifically excludes from the types of challenges that may be brought, and I'm looking at the application of a density bonus ordinance to a particular project. There have been some past pieces of legislation that have granted density bonuses without really reopening or requiring through the CUP process by local governments the ability to change, for example, parking requirements and things like this. As we're looking at urban infill, there are many, not only homeowners association, but residents are feeling the impact of spillover parking because of the density bonus issue. So when it says excludes from the type of challenges that may be brought during this time period, including the application of density bonus ordinance to a particular project, I need to understand what exactly they're saying. Because that's, we were mostly talking about the statute of limitations, but there's actually several other parts of the bill.
Well,
my understanding is that there's a separate statute that governs challenges regarding density bonuses, has its own statute of limitation, its own framework that's separate from these types of challenges.
So density bonuses can't be challenged.
Well, I think what we're changing in this bill, Senator Pavley, under current law, going back to before the Pleasanton case was decided, which is the subject of this.
Right. And maybe
there's
that's
a list
the
of
answer
statutes.
here is narrowing it down to the Pleasanton case because I'm going to have to take a lot of time to see how it impacts my area of the world. And
sure, but just answer, if I could, your question. I think the statute had long provided that among the things that could be challenged under this special affordable housing exception was an action taken pursuant to density bonus law. We are generally striking that provision out so that, because we see that as a project-specific approval, which probably is appropriately within that shorter statute of limitations period, the general statute of limitations of 90 days that's elsewhere in the statute. So if I understand your concern, I think we are in some ways answering it because we are narrowing the opportunities to bring those kinds of challenges. If the challenge is that the local government didn't give me the density bonus to which I'm entitled, but that has to be brought earlier rather than later.
I'm wearing the homeowner hat. I'm not wearing the developer hat.
Right. Well, or if the
adjacent
right
property owners.
Right. So
who I think objected to the original bill, if I remember it correctly, from my days in the assembly.
Well, I'm not certain when this provision was added to subsection D, but we are trying to just narrow this onto the Pleasanton case and to make sure that we're narrowly focusing this affordable housing exemption where it belongs in sort of the living document as opposed to the project-specific approvals.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Leo, would you like to close?
Again, Mr. Chairman and members, the history of this previous existing law speaks for itself. Very little litigation, and I think the analysis did a good job explaining why it's impractical for local citizens or housing advocates to, where there's problems with the housing element, to be able to challenge them. And as a former legal aid attorney, former staff attorney for Superior Court, very few areas of the law that have such a short statute of limitation. Even in small claims court, for the most basic breach of contract, it's a 4-year statute of limitations for a citizen to come and have that issue brought before the court. And this very short period that this court established really is impractical when you're talking about hundreds of housing elements being approved, many at the same time all across our state. So I think the previous rule that we had in place really worked and really showed that there was a way to challenge housing elements within comply with state law, but yet also didn't result at all in very much litigation that overburdened the courts.
Thank you. I agree with you. I don't ever want to be a party to increasing unnecessary lawsuits, but it seems that it's worked in the past. And given that housing law is such a difficult and complex and ever-changing part of policy, I think this is, and if you'll continue to work with us, particularly on the issues that was brought up earlier, we would appreciate it. So the recommendations do pass. Is there a motion? I will move it. And I'd ask the Secretary to call the roll.
The motion is due pass. Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines?
No.
Gaines, no. Harmon?
No.
Harmon, no. Huff? Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal? Pavley? Rubio? Simidian?
Thank you, Assembly Member. We'll leave it on call. You have 2 votes. You need 3 more to get it out. Mr. Fuentes, I thought I saw him. He is on his way. We have not, but we will need a quorum to do consent because we've got to waive the rules on the naming issues. Not that there's anything controversial, it's more procedural. They're still alive. No. We want to make sure that they're actually passed away. Mr. Fuentes, delighted to see you, sir. You ready to take up your bill? Because it's all yours, Mr. Fuentes.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members.
Here to present on 1216, a bill before your committee. Let me begin by saying that I'm happy to take the recommended amendment in the analysis. This bill is a reintroduction of AB 2019 from 2008, which passed out of the legislature but was vetoed by Governor Schwarzenegger. AB 1216 empowers tenants of affordable housing and local governments to enforce provisions of affordable housing law aimed at retaining housing as affordable. Current law requires that notice be given to a list of entities, including tenants and affected public institutions and entities, when an affordable housing development is going to lose its subsidy or in any way is at risk of losing its affordable status. It does not, however, give affected tenants and cities standing to enforce these provisions, so this bill will grant such standing. The intent of retention statutes like the one this bill would amend is to ensure that affordable housing units remain affordable for the tenants who live in them, and to ensure that cities are able to retain their affordable housing stock. This bill will help facilitate this. Today with me, I've got Brian Augusta of the California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation here to testify and answer any questions. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. This bill simply clarifies what I think we see as an oversight in the original law. This law helps to ensure that the affordable housing that we have built in California, if possible, remains affordable, even as the affordability restrictions end. And the way we do that is we create a mechanism to try to bring buyer and seller together in hopes of getting an interested seller into the transaction who would purchase the property and continue to maintain the affordability. It's a win-win if we can make it happen. And the law has two pieces. One is notice to tenants that the affordability restrictions may be ending. And then there is a requirement, if the owner is looking to sell the property, that they entertain purchase offers from what we call preservation purchasers. This bill fixes a simple oversight, which is to ensure that the residents, the ones who would be affected by the loss of affordability, can also effectively enforce the obligation to entertain the purchase offer. Right now, they have the ability to enforce the notice requirement, but not the operative provision, which is bringing the buyer and seller together. We think this will ensure better compliance with the law, better oversight, and hopefully result in more deals that preserve affordable housing in our state. So for those reasons, we would ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Augusta. Any other witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Any questions or comments from the committee? There's a motion. Mr. Fuentes, would you like to close?
I urge an aye vote, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Motion is by Senator Keogh to do pass as amended. I'll ask the Secretary to call a roll.
Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines? Harmon? Huff? Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal? Pavley?
Aye.
Pavley, aye. Rubio? Semidian?
We're going to place it on call. You have... Yes. We're waiting with bated breath. Okay. Semidian, aye.
Semidian, aye on AB 1216.
So that will give you 4 votes.
Very good. Thank you.
You need 1 more. Thank you, Mr.
Chair.
Fuentes.
Members.
That's our last item, so we'll go back and start in file order. Some of these
calendar?
consent calendar we'll take it. Well, we can take that now if you.
It doesn't matter.
Do we have a quorum? We have a quorum. 5.
Yeah, we have 5.
Okay, let's take the consent calendar first. And in way of explanation, we have 5 resolutions naming resolutions on the consent calendar. Each of these received 1 no vote in the Assembly, and normally it's our custom and practice of the committee to place naming resolutions on consent. Our rules preclude that for measures on which any no votes have been recorded. Therefore, I'm asking that we waive the rules to keep these 5 resolutions on consent today, and would ask for a resolution to do that, or I should say a motion to do that.
So move.
Okay, that's by Senator Pavley, and we'll take a roll call on the motion to waive the rules, to leave these on consent. I don't know. We'd have to ask Senator Smidian as a parliamentarian, but as the chair, I'm going to say we're not going to do that. Go ahead.
Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines? Gaines, aye. Harmon? Huff? Kehoe? Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal? Pavley.
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Pavley.
Aye.
Pavley, aye. Rubio. Semidion.
Okay.
Semidion, aye.
And now do we have a motion on the consent calendar to approve? Senator Pavley moves approval of the consent calendar. We'll ask the Secretary to call the roll.
On the consent calendar, Senators Desaulniers.
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines.
Aye.
Gaines, aye. Harmon. Hoff. Kehoe. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley.
Aye.
Pavley, aye. Rubio. Semidion. Semidion, aye.
Okay, that's 6 votes. We'll leave it on call for the consent calendar. Go back to file item number 1, AB 286. This is by Assemblymember Berryhill. We heard this as a subcommittee, so we would ask for a motion. The recommendation is to do pass to appropriations.
Senators Desaulniers.
Okay, do we have a
Oh,
motion?
we need a motion first.
I'll move it.
Okay, Senators Desaulniers.
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines.
Aye.
Gaines, aye. Harmon. Huff. Kehoe. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley. Pavley, aye. Rubio. Semidion. Semidion, aye. 6.
That has 6 votes. We'll leave that on call for the absent members. Item number 2, AB 349. This is by Assemblymember Senator Chesbauer, I should say. Did we have a motion on this one?
Yes.
Yes, we did. Okay, we'll call the roll then.
Okay. The motion is due pass as amended to the Chair, aye. Vice Chair, aye. Senators Huff. File item 2.
Chesbauer.
Huff, aye. Rubio. Semidion. Semidion, aye.
7 votes,
Oh,
7 aye
7.
votes for that. We'll leave it on call for Mr. Rubio.
8 votes.
8 votes, I'm sorry. 8 votes on that, but we'll leave it open for Mr. Rubio. That'll take us to file item number 3, AB 462 by Assemblymember Lowenthal. The current vote is
3-0.
3-0.
The motion is due pass 2 rules. Chair, aye. Vice Chair hasn't voted. Senators Gaines. Gaines, aye. Harmon. Huff. Huff, aye. Lowenthal. Lowenthal, aye. Rubio. Semidion. 6 votes.
Okay, we have 6 aye votes on that one. We'll leave it on call for the absent members. Item number 4, AB 470. This is by Assemblymember Haldeman. The recommendation is due pass to environmental quality. There wasn't a quorum, so we heard it as a subcommittee. Is there a motion to pass to EQ? Senator Huff makes the motion. We'll ask the Secretary to call the roll.
Senators Desaulniers.
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines. Gaines, aye. Harmon. Huff. Huff, aye. Kehoe. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley. Pavley, aye. Rubio. Semidion. 6.
That has 6 votes. We'll leave it on call. It takes us to number 5, AB 475 by Assemblymember Butler, which has 4 votes right now.
Yes. The motion is due pass as amended to the Committee on Appropriations. Current vote is 4-0. Chair, aye. Vice Chair hasn't voted. Senators Gaines.
Aye.
Gaines, aye. Harmon. Lowenthal. Aye. Lowenthal, aye. Rubio. Semidion. Semidion, aye. 7.
7 aye votes. Again, we'll leave that on call for the absent members. Number 6 is AB 529 by Assemblymember Gatto.
We need a motion.
And we need a motion. The recommendation is due pass as amended to appropriations.
So moved.
Motion is by the Vice Chair. We'll call a roll.
Senators Desaulniers.
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines.
Aye.
Gaines, aye. Harmon. Huff. Huff, aye. Kehoe. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley. Pavley, aye. Rubio. Semidion. Semidion, aye.
7.
7.
That's 7-0. Again, we'll leave it on call, which takes us to item number 10, AB 1216 by Assemblymember Fuentes.
The motion is due pass as amended. The current vote is 4-0. Chair, aye. Vice Chair hasn't voted. Senators Gaines.
No.
Gaines, no. Harmon. Huff.
No.
Huff, no. Item 10. Lowenthal. Aye. Lowenthal, aye. Rubio. 5-2.
The vote on that bill is 5-2, and we'll leave it on call for the absent members, but it has sufficient votes for passage. Item number 11, AB 1220.
The motion is due pass. The current vote is 2-2. Chair aye, Vice Chair no. Huff?
Before you begin calling the roll, this is Mr. Alejo's bill, yes?
Yes.
I'm going to provide a courtesy aye vote today, but I am troubled by the 5-year time frame and would like to see that scaled back. I understand there's a need to address the issue, but 5 years to me seems excessive. So this is a courtesy to help the author work on the bill, but no commitment going forward. And I would encourage the chair, since it's always easy for me to volunteer the chair's time, to work with the author and see if we can't get to a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll do that in the same spirit that I've offered your time as chair of EQ.
Thank you.
With the same expected result, I might add.
With the number of bills, I noticed. Thank you.
It's currently 2-2.
If needed, I will grant a courtesy vote. I'll reiterate what Senator Simidian say, narrowing this to Pleasanton. I'm particularly troubled. I don't understand legally the exclusion language for those set areas, that they can't be challenged, particularly density bonuses and things like that, that has direct impacts to people that live and work adjacent to areas that are not providing adequate parking.
I think both those comments are well taken.
And I don't know why that needs to be in the bill when you're addressing a Pleasanton issue on 5-year statute of limitations.
Okay. We will put some effort into it and see if we can resolve those issues. Appreciate it.
Okay. Senator Huff? No. Huff, no. Lowenthal? Aye. Lowenthal, aye. Pavley? Rubio? Simidian?
Aye.
Simidian, aye.
That's 4-3, and we'll leave it on call.
Pavley, aye. I don't know where Mike Rubio is.
That'll be 5-3. That's
Pavley, aye.
sufficient.
But I'm counting on you to fix this.
Were you looking at Senator Simidian when you said that? Tag, you're in, Senator Simidian. Good luck with that, if you need any help. Item number 12 by Assemblymember Gatto.
The motion is due pass. The current vote is 4-0. Chair aye. Vice Chair hasn't voted. Senator Gaines?
Aye.
Gaines, aye. Harmon? Huff? Aye. Huff, aye. Rubio? Simidian?
Aye.
Did I vote on that? Simidian, aye. Yes. 7.
That has 7 votes, and that's the end of our agenda. We will leave these items on call and thank all the members and guests who have been here for the hearing. Okay.
Yes, you did. I did vote on Huff is not on the consent.
So we're leaving the roll open, and I'll sit here until Senator Rubio gets back.
Do you want to open it for Senator Rubio?
Sure. We're going to open consent for Senator Huff.
Yes. Huff? Huff, aye.
So I voted on it.
Yes.
Yes. We're going to lift the call on item number 1.
Senator Huff? Huff, aye. 7-0.
That's 7-0, and again, that's sufficient for passage, but we're going to leave it on call for the absent members. Thank you.
That was a rhetorical comment. Yes. Stay over here. Thank you, sir. Yeah, all right. Take care. Thanks.
Could we make a point of getting a representative from the Air Resources Board to these meetings in the future? Okay, we'll open the roll, and we'll start.
We'll start in file order.
Yes.
With file item number 1, AB 286. The motion is do pass and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. The current vote is 7-0. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, aye. Senator Harmon?
Aye.
Harmon, aye. Okay, that's 8-0.
That's 8-0. Again, we'll leave it on call for the absent member.
File item 2, AB 349. The motion is do pass as amended. The current vote is 8-0. I'm sorry, you're on that one already.
Yes, I am.
Excuse me.
We'll leave it open.
We'll leave it open. File item 3, AB 462. The motion is do pass to the Committee on Rules. The current vote is 6-0. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, aye. Senator Harmon?
Aye.
Harmon, aye. So it's still on call, 7 votes.
That's 7-0. We'll leave it on call.
File item 4, AB 470. The motion is do pass to the Committee on Environmental Quality. Current vote 6-0. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, aye. Senator Harmon?
Aye.
Harmon, aye. 7-0. Place the call.
7-0. We'll leave it on call.
File item 5, AB 475. The motion is do pass as amended to the Committee on Appropriations. Current vote is 7-0. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, aye. Senator Harmon?
Aye.
Harmon, aye. That's 8-0.
That's 8-0. Again, we'll leave it on call.
File item 6, AB 529. The motion is do pass as amended to the Committee on Appropriations. Current vote is 7-0. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, aye. Senator Harmon?
Aye.
Harmon, aye. It's 8-0.
8-0. We'll leave that one on call.
File item 10, AB 1216. The motion is do pass as amended. Current vote is 5-2. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, no. Senator Harmon?
No.
Harmon, no. So it's 5-3.
That's 5-3. We'll leave that on call.
And he's on 11. File item 12, AB 1222. The motion is do pass. The current vote is 7-0. Chair, aye. Vice Chair, aye. Senator Harmon?
Aye.
Harmon, aye. It's 8-0.
That's 8-0. We'll leave that one on call.
And on the consent calendar, Senator Harmon?
Aye.
Harmon, aye. It's 8-0.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. You're welcome, Mr. Harmon. And do we have any action photos of sergeants going out to get Senator Rubio? Okay, we're going to go through one more time, open the roll, and announce the final results, and we'll go right through the list.
File item 1, AB 286. The motion is due pass to the Committee on Appropriations. The vote is 8-0. The bill is out.
Do we want to call the absent members, please?
Senator Rubio.
The final vote is, we'll close the roll on that one. The vote is 8-0. Item number 2.
AB 349, due pass as amended. The current vote is 8-0. Senator Rubio.
We'll close the roll on that one. The vote is 8-0.
AB 462, due pass to rules. The current vote is 7-0. Senator Rubio.
We'll close the roll on that one. The final vote is 7-0. It does pass out. Pass out, I should say.
AB 470, the motion is due pass to the Committee on Environmental Quality. Current vote is 7-0. Senator Rubio.
We'll close the roll on that one. That passes out of this committee on a vote of 7-0.
AB 475, the motion is due pass as amended to the Committee on Appropriations. Current vote is 8-0. Senator Rubio.
We'll close the roll on that one. So that bill passes out 8-0 from this committee.
AB 529, the motion is due pass as amended to the Committee on Appropriations. The current vote is 8-0. Senator Rubio.
Close the roll on that one. It's 8-0. It does pass out of committee.
AB 1216, the motion is due pass as amended. The current vote is 5-3. Senator Rubio.
We'll close the roll on that one. That bill passes out on a 5-3 vote.
AB 1220, the motion is due pass. The current vote is 5-3. Senator Rubio. Okay, that bill is out.
That bill is out on a vote of 5-3. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
AB 1222, the motion is due pass. The current vote is 8-0. Senator Rubio.
We'll close the roll on that one. That bill passes out of the committee on a vote of 8-0, and then we've got consent.
And on the consent calendar, the current vote is 8-0. Senator Rubio.
We'll close the roll on that one, and that the consent calendar is out on a vote of
8-0.
8-0. And that will bring us to adjournment. Thank you.